Hey, Vinyl community. My name is Parker Mason. I've been a fan of the community for a long time, been a lurker for many, many years, and had a little bit of time today to kind of do a quick video. Well, maybe I'll put something out there, see how it goes. And so today, I want to talk about 5 or maybe 6 or 7 really incredible albums to listen to on a winter day. I know if you're like me, I live in the central Midwest, and it's been snowing like crazy. We've had blizzards all across this part of the country, and so I know a lot of you guys are probably in the same boat. And so here's some of my favorite albums to put on a day like the past several days that we've had. And so we'll get right into it. And so starting off, I gotta show this absolute gem by Jeff Buckley, Grace. This is one of the recent Newbery Comics variants that came out. This is on a kind of a darker, deep blue. This came out in 1994. If you're not familiar with this, this was the only album that Jeff lived to see put out in his lifetime, which is an absolute shame because it is a masterpiece and one of the best albums of the 90s, one of the best albums of all time. Just Jeff's vocals on this are just simply incredible. He was also a very underrated guitar player. A lot of people know this record for Hallelujah, which is, in my opinion, I think the definitive version of that song, followed closely by Leonard Cohen's original, but every single song on this is just so beautifully performed. The original is so beautifully written. There are a couple covers on this thing, but yeah, cannot overstate how great this hits on a winter day. Just a very kind of airy, kind of desperate, longing quality to it. I think really kind of just brings something to a winter day like we've had lately. Jeff Buckley's Grace. Do check this out if you've not heard it. Next up, gonna move to something that is a little more recent, something that I actually was around for when it came out, and that is Carrie & Lowell by Sufjan Stevens. This is a masterpiece. Sufjan Stevens, if you're not familiar, is sort of a singer-songwriter. He comes from Michigan, kind of hit the ground running back in the 2000s with 2 albums he wrote about two of the states in the United States, Michigan, his home state, and Illinois, which are 2 beautifully, masterfully crafted albums. This came out in 2015. It's a lot more somber than those 2, if you're familiar with them. But this was written after the passing of his mother, who he had a very complicated relationship with. And a lot of these songs are just really painful, but again, similar to Grace, have just sort of an air about them, sort of this kind of, wistful longing quality that I think really complements a winter day. And a lot of them just, the production is just sort of dreary, I think, in a good way. And that really complements, again, snowy wintry days like we've had here in the central Midwest as of late. I'll probably do a video dedicated to this album. There's videos already been made, but I love this album, highly recommend it. And yeah, Sufjan Stevens, Carrie & Lowell. Okay, next up, we're gonna go a little bit older. This is probably one that I know a lot of you have probably heard of, and for good reason, because it is Joni Mitchell's Blue. I was looking for a copy for this a long time. I finally got it in my hometown record store a year or 2 ago. This is a masterpiece. This came out 1969, 1970, somewhere in there, and a lot of people consider it to be Joni Mitchell's magnum opus. I would probably be among those. This was kind of her, I would say, her creative peak was around that time, and every single song on this you can't miss. I mean, again, just the production. I think the songwriting, the song River on here. I mean, it's kind of a very sad Christmas song, but she talks about, I wish there was a river that I could skate away on, and if that doesn't bring up these images of winter and just some of those feelings that we get, I don't know what does. And so a lot of you probably already have this, have already heard it. I probably don't need to go super in depth on it. But if you haven't, do yourself a favor. Joni Mitchell Blue, you won't regret it. Okay, I'm gonna do 3 more and then we'll go ahead and cut this off. But the next 2 are gonna be CDs because I have not had the chance to pick these up on vinyl yet. I want to, and I will very soon. But this is one of my favorite albums of all time, and that is Bright Eyes, I'm Wide Awake, It's Morning. I have loved this album for probably the better part of 10 years. And this is a project helmed by Conor Oberst from Nebraska. He is, I think, one of the best singer-songwriters of the last 20 years. And Bright Eyes, his band, I think this was near the top, if not their best album. There's debate in the fandom about that, but this entire album just evokes imagery of winter themes, especially New York City. You can kind of see the New York City apartments that are kind of depicted on the cover. I've never been, but I think that's supposed to be like Manhattan sort of thing, maybe Harlem, something like that. But yeah, this whole thing, just front to back, does not miss. Absolute masterpiece. I would really recommend the songs. Like Lua has a lot of really great kind of wintry imagery to it. We Are Nowhere and It's Now is incredible. Poison Oak, I mean, I could go on and on, but yeah, Conor Oberst, Bright Eyes, I'm Wide Awake, It's Morning, absolute masterpiece of kind of a folk indie singer-songwriter type album, which is kind of the, if you couldn't tell, kind of the theme that we've had going. Highly recommend. And then after that, another CD that I need to get the vinyl copy of is The Postal Service, Give Up. This came out in 2003 and was a collaboration of Ben Gibbard and Jimmy Tamborello. Ben Gibbard being of Death Cab for Cutie fame, and Jimmy being of D&Tel fame. I think that's how you say that. So this was kind of a super group of sorts, and there's a lot of really incredible winter imagery on this one. Huge Ben Gibbard fan, huge Death Cab for Cutie fan, and this is to this day one of the best-selling albums on the Sub Pop label, which has had a bunch of really incredible releases in the past 20 or 30 years, and this is certainly among them. I'd really recommend The District Sleeps Alone Tonight is incredible. Such Great Heights is sort of the one that a lot of people know. Iron and Wine, if you're familiar with them, they did a really famous cover of that song. Let's see, Recycled Air is really great. I think Sleeping In is actually one of my favorites. That one doesn't get talked about a lot, but that is just an absolute, banger of a song. Whole album, all these albums are just filled with absolute bangers. But yeah, this was the kind of deluxe CD version that came out. Sub Pop reissued it, I think, for the 10th anniversary in 2013. So I've had this for a few years, but kind of a cool little booklet there. So yeah, this is kind of like, Ben Gibbard has kind of singer-songwriter roots, right? But the production is kind of electronic. So a lot of people compare this to like Owl City, which, came out years after this. But if you like that kind of vibe, I actually prefer this. I think this is kind of a lot better than a lot of the Owl City stuff. Not that it was bad, of course. I mean, a lot of those songs are classic, but if that's your vibe, check this out. You will not regret it. And last but certainly not least, we're going to do For Emma, Forever Ago by Bon Iver. So this came out in 2007, 2008, and I actually discovered it in about 2010, 2011, and I discovered it through this old podcast that used to be on Apple, like iTunes, right? And it was called the iTunes Celebrity Playlist Podcast. And that's been long since gone, but essentially, as the name implies, celebrities would come on, they would kind of talk about a lot of their favorite songs, and then, iTunes would play like a 15, 20-second snippet, and you would go and buy it on iTunes, right? Well, Rainn Wilson of The Office fame, right? He played Dwight on The Office. He went on, and he had just some incredible recommendations. A lot of music that I went on to love, he talked about. But one of the songs that he recommended was R.E. Stax, or Regarding Stax, which is the closing track off this album. And I listened to it, and I just fell in love with it. And I, proceeded to go buy the CD. and I wore that CD out. I still have it, but it's unplayable because I just played it so much growing up past decade. And the album, you know, sort of has this mythos around it. Justin Vernon, who is the, you know, kind of the main creative force behind Bon Iver, the story goes is that he kind of was down on his luck, kind of just in a rough spot in life, and then he kind of retreats to the woods, kind of, you know, Thoreau style, into his father's cabin, where he has like a 4-track and he records all these songs, kind of reflecting that in the dead of the, you know, Wisconsin winter. That's where he's from. And so, and then he releases them, and then everyone really relates to it. This isn't the original cover. The original cover is kind of a frosted over windshield. And so the whole album, I think, out of all of these, I think has the most winter-esque kind of themes and undertones to it. And so if you have not heard this, I cannot recommend it enough, as with all these albums. It's mostly just Justin and his guitar. And there's some, you know, on some of the tracks, there's some overdubs that were added later, but you can tell this was just a product of the time in his life when it was made. And I think a lot of people who have heard it, myself included, can just really relate to what he was going through and what he put out, you know, kind of heartfelt things on this album, what he wrote on it. And so, yeah, Bon Iver for Emma, Forever Ago, wrapping up this list for albums to listen to on a cold winter day. Okay, and that'll do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you watched, I think I'm going to try and do more of these. So expect more of that, and stay warm out there. I think the snow is mostly done, and thankfully the sun's coming out, so I think it's going to warm up soon. But if it doesn't, stay safe, stay warm, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.